Hello and welcome to Workshop 3 when we talk about what's often called the third pillar of sustainability, which is the economy or the business world. From my acknowledgement of country this week, I wanted to show you this photograph of Deline, who is holding a lizard in one hand and is digging for another lizard with her right hand. And just to show that people have been carrying on an economy or a business, or we've been fulfilling our needs as a society through trade and through work for a very long time. And yeah, that's it. Our themes for this week are to think about whether the economy is working. And when we say working for whom and to achieve what? Is it working for people equally? Is it working for society? Is it working for prosperity? Then we'll have to take a look at neoliberal capitalism, which is the prevailing form of capitalism that we're living under at the moment, in the context of the history of economics, very briefly. And then we want to just have a look about what's the difference between sustainable development and a sustainable economy? And then look at those in the context of what is sustainability in general in terms of the three pillars of environment, social, and economics. So, is the economy working? Who for and to what ends? So, what is the purpose of business? And what is the purpose of an economy? And in class, we did a brainstorm. What immediately comes to mind? And then try to dig down. Why? Why do we need that? Why do we need that? Why do we need that? And this is a good critical thinking exercise if you want to do it yourself. Why do we need businesses? Why do we need an economy? And is the current economic system achieving that, or is it achieving some other purpose? Somehow we have lost our original purpose. For me, it's a simple matter of businesses exist and the economy exists in order that we all get our needs met through exchange. That's pretty oversimplified and there's a lot more to it, but you can have a think about that. Okay, so let's just have a look at economics through history. And this is a reminder that economic theory is a social construction. So it goes back to our topic from last week of the social construction of reality. Economic systems, economic ideology is just another thing that is socially constructed. And we can change it if we want to. So just the briefest of brief skim through economic ideas throughout history. In ancient civilizations, there was an economy. Grain was used as currency, or clay tablets where we wrote who owes who what. Ancient Rome used silver and gold coins. They did use silver coins until inflation was so bad they had to invent gold coins. So inflation is not a new thing either. Aristotle used this idea. He talked about the idea of value and exchange value, which is important. Then in around the 1700s, Adam Smith came along, often called the father of economics. He talked about the invisible hand, the division of labor, free markets, trade, the idea that self-interest will move money and goods around. We don't need to worry about anything else except for making a living ourselves. And he said that competition produces goods that are valued and create value for society. Then in the 1800s, John Stuart Mill talked about the utility of goods for certain people. social and introduce ideas about social welfare, how economic policies affect the welfare of citizens and social justice. And then in 1930s, between the wars, the world wars, there was it was a difficult time. We had the Spanish flu over those few decades, the Great Depression, everything like that. And John Maynard Keynes came along and he talked about the idea that demand drives economic activity, so that governments could actively intervene through their fiscal policy to stimulate demand during downturns. I think he said that the government should pay people to dig holes, and then when they finish digging the holes, they should pay them to fill them back in again, such that getting the money circulating is what you need to drive economic activity. Around this period, the gold standard was an important thing. Everybody compared their currencies to the gold standard. After the Second World War, now I've forgotten what it's called. There's a name for it, comes up all the time, when they pegged the US currency to gold and then pegged everybody else to the US currency. And that has now started, of course, to break down, because the US is not the pillar of strength that it was 50 odd years ago. All right, so now in 1970s, Friedman came along and he echoed the ideas of Hayek, who's German, and it was a time of real unrest. There was huge inflation, there was what they called stagflation, and high unemployment and high inflation at the same time, which is not typically known until that time. And he introduced Hayek's ideas, which are now called neoliberalism or neoliberal capitalism. These ideas of a hyper-free market, completely reducing government intervention into the economy, privatizing everything, including public services, deregulating to attract outside money. The financial sector grew in power, and it's called free market capitalism. It's also called trickle-down economics, and I call it neoliberal capitalism or neoliberalism. And its three pillars are reduce government intervention in the economy, reduce government services and reduce taxes, and deregulate and attract foreign capital. But the whole reason of showing you all that, economics throughout history, was to say that economic theory and economic practice are social constructions, and they are contested. So not everybody agrees with what we're doing, even though neoliberalism is the dominant theory and practice of our time. David Vines says that the old model of macroeconomics was built for a stable world, free from large economic shocks, and if we ever lived in such a world, we no longer do. It is the economics of our time, or is this economic theory that we've been living with for 50 years, is it working? Is it working for everyone? And what is it working to do? And I would argue, no, it is not working. It's not good for society. It's not good for the environment. And it's not good for how we govern. And I just came across this article a couple of weeks ago that basically said that a long time ago, when around the time of Machiavelli, when he wrote The Prince, and the princes were sort of like the leaders of the territories, and it was decided that it was better to let the merchants run the economy than the princes. However, now, just because it was like a separation of power, I guess, but now what he's saying in this article is that the merchants have become the princes. So the people with all the money are also the people with all the power, basically. Anyway, if you want to read that article, it's very interesting. And lastly, here we have Sam Altman saying, and he actually said this, and he said it more than once. I think AI will probably most likely sort of lead to the end of the world, but in the meantime, there will be great companies. And to me, this is a real wake-up call to the idea that we need to construct an economy that serves us, serves society, and serves the planet, and serves everybody together, not have this rather skewed idea of, oh, this will be fun, even though it might end up with everybody dying. Anyway, that's it for this section, and I'll see you in the next section on inequality.